Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and this is RPG Power Hour. Today, we are going to be going over the RPGaDay prompts. Now, at the time you are watching this, this should be day one of GenCon. So, myself and my wife will be at GenCon. So you're going to see some of the stuff I'm packing, I guess, and things like that. We'll have another video in a couple weeks we're gonna put a video together, and I will just call it my GenCon experience, and I hope you guys will hit subscribe so you can check that out later. Another thing I'm hoping to do is have a couple of my books signed by people. For instance, I'm planning on tracking Kevin down for my Palladium Fantasy book, seeing if he will sign that. Also seeing if Sean Robertson will sign that. I know he didn't work on that, but now he works at Palladium, so it'd be cool to have him sign that. And I'm also going to track down a couple other people about some books. Some products I'm looking at picking up at GenCon. I'm looking to pick up the Marvel Multiverse X-Men book by Matt Forbeck, which obviously I will see if he will sign that as well. Matt Forbeck is a friend of the channel. He graduated from U of M, which is nice. And he's been on the channel before with other things, and such as his 5e Shotguns and Sorcery book, which is out now, so you can go purchase that. And he's done some other stuff, and I think I've filmed him in seminars before at GrandCon and things like that. So anyways, we're just gonna have fun. But yeah, so today we're gonna be doing this. I'm gonna go through all the prompts, give you guys my thoughts on those. Just like most RPG Power Hours, it probably will be a longer video. So stay tuned. I hope you guys will enjoy it. Before I get too deep into the weeds, I did want to quickly show you guys a couple new products we have over on the website. If you head to masterthegamerpg.com and you click on the store, you can get this shirt, which the back of it lists some campaigns we've finished and things like that. I think it's a really cool shirt. It's very soft. This is one of my favorite shirts. It's, nice, fits great, very nice fit. I have another shirt up there, Play and Let Play, which is now at the top of the featured items. It's got my rules for D&D about how to play the game and let others play their way as well. Basically about being inclusive and not toxic and all those things you want at your table. At least go check it out, see if it's something you want. All right, so every year I try to do the RPGaDay prompts. This year's no different. However, they have the prompts. They also have these fun things. So you can roll dice. There's 31 days, so you do the theme, and then you roll a D10 to determine what you do on that day. So for example, day one is supposed to be runes. If you roll a D10, you could get something like draw runes or present an idea for a random encounter. So some good stuff on here. 31 days of fun stuff. With that, let's get into the prompts. Day number 1, first RPG bought this year. I think one of the first RPGs I bought this year was the book Cataclysm of Kang for the Marvel Multiverse RPG. I got it so I could kind of get some of the characters in there to use and just to kind of see how it recommends running, different checks and abilities. I always kind of like to see what the developers of the game think you should be doing with their game. So I thought that was a good buy at the time. I haven't run it, don't know that I ever will, but it is something nice to have, especially since I like superhero RPGs. Day number 2, most recently played. The game I actually most recently played, because this is now being filmed after GenCon, because I had to refilm this, was the Cool Name RPG system, and it is a really, really cool game. I have to admit, going into it, I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, I had read some of the playtest stuff throughout the process. And certain things I wasn't necessarily really excited about in those. However, in playing the game, it runs how I think a game should run. For instance, I'm just going to use Magic as the example because I think it's done so incredibly well. Better than D&D, Pathfinder, better than any game I've ever played up to this point. If you have a spellcaster that you are playing, doesn't matter what kind it is, you will have a specialty. It might be fire, it might, elemental fire, it might be something different. And within that, you will get an extra bonus if it's your special. I think they actually call it a specialization. So if you decide you are sitting in a room with some bad guys and there's candles on the wall and you want to manipulate the candle flame to turn into something bigger and damage your enemies, you can. If you want to, manipulate that flame to take down the chandelier to fall on your enemies, you can. If you just want to use it to make a bright light, you could probably do something like that, or a wall of fire. And it's not just manipulating. You can probably create fire out of thin air in your hand. But you don't have to just stick to the specialization. For instance, we had a player in this game, his name is Harold, one of my good friends, and he decided, his specialty was fire, so that was why I thought of that. But there was a dead rat, and he wanted to animate the rat. Now, obviously, he had nothing on his character sheet for that, but, you can do it in this system. It's got that flexibility. And so he animated the rat. Now, the difficulty was higher because it wasn't something that he's good at. But as a player, the numbers you get, it's just if it's relevant to your character. So, for instance, you're going to take your attribute, and that might be a 2 or a 3. You're then going to take your spell casting, that adds 1. You're going to then take your specialization that applies, and that might add 1. So now you're action point 5. You refer to the table on the character sheet, and that tells you what dice to roll. And you also then might have a difficulty of 2 to beat, if it's a simple thing. If it's a harder thing, it might be a 4, 5. Heck, it might even be a difficulty 8. So it was really cool to see how the spellcasters could manipulate things and just do things in general. We had one guy who, when we were underground, used roots to come out and make a bridge. That was cool. We had some really cool things that happened, and I am already really excited about playing it. I actually have the playtest document that's 120 pages that Mark Tassin gave to us for playing. And once again, really cool game that I am highly recommending for anyone who likes to improv. I actually think it's going to be a really good system to stream games with as well, if that's your bag. So stay on the lookout for that. Number 3, my most often played RPG. So it's D&D 5th edition. There's no denying it. It's the game I've pretty much played multiple times a week for the last, 10, 11 years. Yes, I've done little breaks here and there and things like that, but it's a simple system. Everybody owns it. Everybody understands it pretty much, unless they're new to RPGs. And it just makes it a simple thing to say, hey, do you guys want to play some D&D? Let's throw in 5th edition. Let's go play it. Everyone's familiar with it. A lot of people like the system. So yeah. Number 4, an RPG with great art. So I'm a little bit partial to the Palladium Books art. Palladium's what got me into role-playing games. It's simple black and white art. They're starting to do more colored stuff. I got to see at GenCon some of the TMNT pages that there are going to be in the Redux, and the color looks great in there. But the black and white art in Heroes Unlimited, in Rifts, in those books, I really like it. It resonates with me. I know it's not all perfect, and some of it's better than others, but I am a fan of some of that. That doesn't mean that I want that in all future books by other companies, because I like art in a lot of different games that are out there. Heck, the new Player's Handbook by D&D, I think the art in there looks great. Pathfinder has always had good art. In fact, Paizo in general just puts really nice colored art in all their books. There's a lot of great art out there, so yeah. An RPG with great writing. So, my favorite writer for the longest time was Bill Coffin at Palladium Books. He did a lot of stuff in Palladium Fantasy, and I was always a fan of his work. I was always drawn to that. So I really want to mention that. But there's some great writing out there in a variety of games. Concise writing. I like how the Green Ronin books are written. I think they're really nice. Very easy to understand what they're saying and get into the game and just play it. So again, I like that as well. Heck, the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide by Paizo, that is one of my all-time favorite books. I can read that book a lot. I get inspiration from, tables doesn't really have to do with the writing, but there's a lot of things in that book that I really like. I found very helpful back in, 2013, and it held up. I use that book. Even to this day, sometimes I refer to that book for things. So that is a well-written book, in my opinion. And a lot of people I've talked to who have that book agree. So, yeah, the Italtus books, they're setting books. It's the versions I have are for 5th edition. It's a third-party publisher. But there's some really good stuff in there. I believe they also made the Italtus setting for Pathfinder. Not 100% sure on that because I don't own those. But for 5th edition, they're really good. I love the setting. I love that it feels more lethal and like dangerous to explore that world. So I really like that as well. An RPG that is easy to use. My answer the other day when I originally filmed this was basically the Age system. I still think that is probably the easiest system I own. 3d6 down the line. 3d6 with 1d6 being a different color. That's your stunt die. And if you get doubles and you succeeded on the roll, you then get to refer to charts depending on the situation. Like if you're in combat, there's a combat chart. If you're doing a spell, it's a spell casting chart. If you're exploring, there's another chart. And if you are in a social interaction, it's another chart. And you can spend the stunt points that you got on the colored die, if you rolled any doubles, however you want. If you want to do 1 or 2 or 3 of the things, as long as you have enough points to do all of it, you can do it. And it can give you things like an advantageous positioning in combat. It can allow you to cleave multiple creatures. It can allow you to add damage, things like that. In spells, I think one of the things you can do is twin it. In social things, you could, make the NPCs more favorable to you. Just all sorts of really cool things. Exploration might give you an extra clue about something, or just all sorts of cool things in that system. But I actually think Cool Name RPG is a pretty easy system to use. Once you get it, I think that's a game that you could pretty much do whatever you want with. And I'm excited about the fact that it is open source. And I'm excited to see what that means for the future. I hope a lot of people pick up and start trying to make stuff for it once it's officially released. Because I think they'll find this is a really cool game that allows you to do a lot. And the play experience is going to be vastly different from one player to the next. And same thing from one table to the next. So if you made an adventure path, the way they will resolve things, you will not be able to predict. And I think for a game master who likes that, like me, I think that'll make it really cool. You might have a rogue that tries to pick the locks. You might have a spellcaster who tries to rip the door off its hinges with a spell, or melt the metal, or, whatever. Like, there's just so many things that you can do, and I think that that's going to be awesome for the future use of that game, and hopefully it gets some legs, because I think it's going to be worth it. Number 7, RPG with good form, kind of goes back to that. Again, I think that is not very restricting, and that is one of the big appeals to the Cool Name RPG. So Cool Name RPG, I think, gets my vote on this one too. Before GenCon, I don't know that it would have been that. I think probably I'd be siding with... It's so hard. Probably Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars. I really like the system itself. I'm assuming good form means like the system within itself is really well done. And things like that. So I would probably just say Fantasy Flight Star Wars there. Number 8, an accessory I really appreciate is my Brothers Forged Rod of Initiative. It's an amazing accessory that we use all the time for all my games online, in person. Alright, this is the Brothers Forged Rod of initiative or initiative rod or whatever. So you can see here, this is what I was saying. The magnets are in the ends here. They used to be glued on the ends there. The sword comes off. You can see the magnet there. You put it wherever you need to and slide it down. Even the top is a magnet, so that comes off. You see, very cool. That's their logo or their branding. But here you can see Brothers Forged, and then this screws in here. So yeah, it's a really cool accessory that I absolutely love. I also have this other cool accessory. A couple things over here. I have this dice box here that's from Dogmite Games. I was given that at GrandCon a few years back as a content creator. But then this is from one of my friends, and his name is Andy. He's got his own company, and that's his company, Drakenstone. So he makes these. They have magnets in them. You can order those. It's my absolute favorite dice tower. And I have a couple of those as well. I've got one right here. This one is from Osp Dice. It fell and broke because it's 3D printed. But then I've got this 3D printed one that I got a long time ago from my wife. 2 sides. So that's a pretty cool dice tower as well. So very cool stuff, if I do say so myself. An accessory I would like to see. I don't remember what I originally said. I guess I would like to see a gaming table that is better for tabletop RPGs. It seems like most of these high-end gaming tables are for board games, and that's fine. But when you think of an RPG, you need enough space for a book and a sheet of paper and maybe a spot to roll your dice. And yeah, then maybe you want stuff set inside the table, so you've got your terrain and miniatures, and that's fine. I think that's cool. Another idea, and I've seen stuff like it before, like a table topper to put it on top of a dinner table, because dinner tables are not big enough for, say, a flip map and your book, all in everyone's books and papers on the table. So having something like that with maybe you plug it into a wall, but then it's got USB ports if people are using tablets for, say, D&D Beyond or something like that. And maybe there's an option with this table topper to have a TV that can slide in and be used as a virtual tabletop or just for really cool maps. Again, this stuff probably is already out there in some way, shape, or form. But I think an all-encompassing thing, and maybe even some lights underneath it. So when you've got your character sheet on the table, it's not dark from the tabletop or shielding your paper from the light. There's probably a lot of things you could do with that. But I don't know. That would be something that would be kind of nice, I think. There's plenty of table companies out there that can do that. An RPG I would like to see on TV. So, again, I'm nostalgic for Palladium books. I believe that a Rifts TV show would be really cool, especially if it's like, you could take kind of like the Fallout formula that they did with their show with characters from different walks of life. In that you had the guy who was from the Steel Brotherhood. You also had the girl from the Vault, and then you had the Ghoul. I think you could do this from like a ley line walker, a coalition soldier, a DB. Maybe you've got some other, there's a lot of things. A glitter boy, a cyber knight. Like, you could have even more characters. And maybe you do it not quite like Fallout. Maybe you do it more like a Game of Thrones, where you kind of jump around to different parts of the world, but eventually all these characters' paths are going to cross, and you're going to have the evolution of characters. Like, maybe the coalition soldier comes across like a total jerk. But maybe throughout the show, you learn why he was a total jerk. Maybe he lost his family to an accident because of a spell, or a DB that was trying to defend themselves against a bunch of coalition soldiers. And so then maybe this kid, because the coalition soldiers took him out, as a kid, he thought, oh, these guys are my heroes. But maybe later on, as he gets older, he starts seeing some of the terrible things they're doing to innocent DBs and children and things like that, who are all like mutants or spellcasters or whatever. And so then he starts saying, oh, this is not right. I don't feel good about this. And maybe he changes, So I think you could do a lot of cool things with that show. Span it over about 4 or 5 seasons at least. And I think you could tell some really cool stories in the Rift setting. And heck, you could probably do that just sticking to North America, but maybe occasionally having some stuff that's happening in the other parts of the world to let you see those things, like Rift's Russia or Japan or something. Rift's England, the Knights of the Round Table kind of. Stuff like that could be really cool, I think. RPG with well-supported one-shots. So the only thing I can really think of for well-supported one-shots are things like Candlekeep Mysteries, Tales of the Yawning Portal, things like that. I know there's other products out there, but it's not something I'm ever seeking out. However, I will say I like those shorter ones far more than I like big long campaigns. Trying to run big long campaigns takes years for me. In fact, we played Tyranny of Dragons, Descent into Avernus. Those took about 4 years to finish for us. So, in fact, the original group was not the final group that we had of players. I think in the one, we were lucky to have half the group. The other one, it was just my wife left over at the end from the beginning. So, I like the shorter ones. I think Savage Worlds has a lot of one-page adventures for their system that you see happen with a lot of Kickstarters. I think Savage Rifts adopted some of those from a previous Kickstarter that have been done. So again, stuff like that I think is really cool. I think it makes it nice to just go, oh, we need something quick tonight, let's do this one. And then, use a different one for another, couple sessions or whatever. Number 12, RPG with well-supported campaigns. This is pretty simple. I think Paizo, they crank out stuff constantly. I actually just got some things today, a couple shorter, because they release them in 1 of 3 and things like that. So I did actually get a couple in the mail today. So I do think in the future I'm going to be posting more of that stuff on my Instagram and stuff. So if you want to see that, head on over there and give us a follow if you want to see the cool stuff that we've gotten from Paizo. Number 13, evocative environments. So again, I'm really drawn to Rifts. I think Galarian's really well done. I think any space game though can really. This could be anything, right? If you're playing Star Wars, or you're playing Eclipse Phase, or you're playing anything like Starfinder, anything that involves you traveling to other planets whenever you feel like, basically, or wherever the campaign's taking you, I think you can get some really evocative environments. Right off the top of my head, I can't come up with any one specific, this book in this environment. But I can say it seems like from things in the past, I would say a lot of the space campaigns and stuff like that usually have the most evocative environments. Number 14, compelling characters. So, first thing I think about is characters in my head, right? I've got my Fellowship of Rock, which is a dwarven troop, consists of a bunch of dwarves that perform on stage like Stomp or Groove. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but those are groups that use common household items and stuff to create music, like brooms sweeping on the floor, mops dipping in the water, trash can lids, things like that. The back of a broom, like the wood part, banging on the floor, things like that. And so I have a group in my setting that I have occasionally come across certain adventurers. So far, it's been pretty interesting. I've had one group that tried to steal from them, that basically started a brawl in the tavern. I've had one group that actually wanted to work with them because they found them in a dungeon taking a nap. I've had a lot of fun interactions with them, and it's always a good time. So, yeah. But talking about compelling characters, the other thing I think about is compelling characters that other players have brought to my games. One of my friends, Peter BN Drake, his YouTube channel, he plays some very interesting characters. He had a Water Ganassi, I believe, in our Tyranny of Dragons campaign. His name was Pike Yellowfin. And, he was writing stories home. He made jokes about, Waterdeep not being so deep in water and how it was very disappointing. Just funny things. He's had other characters that were just as great. He was playing a treant in my homebrew world. It was a homebrewed race that I made. And he's played through 2 mini campaigns with his character named Black Trunk, who has a fixation with romance novels and is always looking for more romance novels. Really doesn't want to get involved in fighting, is terrified of fire. And so we've had a lot of fun with that character. In general, Peter usually plays some very interesting characters. Number 15, great character gear. This makes me think of like magic items and stuff like that, but I really like mundane items such as the Cape of Billowing, which we have used, and stuff like that. There's a awesome game though called The Little Game Master by Randall Hampton. I was privileged enough to playtest that, and in fact my family was. And there were amazing magic items in the deck of cards they have for that. So you can buy a box set of like the character sheets, an adventure, the system, and the character sheets are like dry erase and they're in their own pocket. And it's a really nice box set. And you can also get a deck of cards of like their magic items for it that come in a box. Number 16, quick to learn. Speaking of quick to learn, I think that's basically been the premise of a lot of these. I think Fantasy Age or the Age system in general, very quick to learn. Cool Name RPG is a very quick system to learn. Within about a round of combat, I felt like I knew how it went. I felt pretty confident with that. In fact, I would almost say I would probably feel pretty confident to run that. Not sure though if it would come across as well as Mark. Mark obviously designed the game and ran the game for us, but it seems like a game I could really get into quick, both as a game master and a player. But also, like I was saying before, the Little Game Master, obviously that's geared towards kids. Very simple game. The character sheets give like the kids or the characters about 3 different known actions. And it's got the images of the dice you do to do things. So for a kid, you don't even have to necessarily know what dice are what. Just know you roll the die that's right next to the picture of the thing. So really cool game. Another one is No Thank You Evil by Monty Cook Games. Another very, very simple game. Number 17, an engaging RPG community. I would say in general, there's a lot of people in the D&D space that are always very active. However, fans of GenCon this past weekend came in clutch. Whether you were trying to find a place to eat, trying to figure out how to navigate the event system for GenCon, it was great. My wife, has never been to GenCon before, and she was able to like be on there and just look up stuff, find out events that she wasn't even thinking about going to. And in the future, I think she's going to want to do more, but she found some really cool things going on. Unfortunately, we missed out on a lot of it. But yeah, there's a good chance next year we'll see some cool stuff thanks to the fans of GenCon. So I'm going to say that community is a really good one. And hopefully one day mine is also this way. I'm working on it. Number 18, a memorable moment of play. Well, right now, the first thing that comes to mind is Harold animating the rat in our game that we played with of Cool Name RPG. I didn't realize you could really just do whatever you wanted magic-wise until we sat down to play this game. And as soon as the game master mentioned there was a dead rat, and I knew Harold was a spellcaster, I knew. So when he animated it, he actually failed his roll, but he only failed by 1, and you get story points. And so he used a story point to imbue that rat with magic and bring it to life, and it was fantastic. So I absolutely loved that. Number 19, a sensational session. So I'm not going to say just one. I'm going to say if you are interested in seeing some really good game sessions, we do have some on this channel. We have a one-shot that was Call of Cthulhu with the Outsiders 68. And what was that called? I can't remember the name of that campaign. I will put an end card here for that. An end card. I will put a card here for that. But that was a really cool one. We had like Mr. Brown, Mr. Blue, Mr. Red. Like everyone's character was a color. And I think it was after a heist. I think we committed a heist. So that is a good single session. However, if you want a variety of sessions, I really enjoyed our Swamplands of Thakos campaign. It was a shorter campaign. I want to say like 12 episodes or so. Another one is, I would say our Descent into Avernus, but I would just jump straight to the Kobolds in Avernus. So about halfway through the campaign, one of our patrons paid for us to change our classes, or not our classes, our races. So everyone came up with kobolds. And then after a little bit, my friend Peter wanted to join the campaign, but he decided to be a bugbear and was our lawyer, our legal representation in the party. So once again, I told you Peter plays really fun characters, and he was hilarious in that as well. So there's some really cool moments within that campaign that I think you guys might like. But just check out the Kobolds in Avernus campaign, and I think you guys might like that one. Number 20, An Amazing Adventure. I think Fall of Plaguestone was pretty good. I like the idea of the sick town and things around, well, the sick things around the town. Paizo in general does a good job with a lot of their adventures, but they also had one called, I can't think of it. I have some of the books, but I don't have all of them. It's the one where you can be circus performers. When we were playing Fall of Plaguestone, all the party wanted to be a traveling circus. So we had 2 goblins and, anyways, the point is everyone wanted to be a circus character. And then when I told them Extinction Curse, when I told them about Extinction Curse, they actually thought that was pretty cool. There was a brief moment of talking about, let's do Fall of Plaguestone and then jump into Extinction Curse. We did all of Fall of Plaguestone except for the very last session. So we didn't finish it, but there was interest of moving on to Extinction Curse, and unfortunately everyone had busy schedules, so we couldn't continue with that. Number 21, a classic campaign. So I'm a big fan of the Goodman Games D&D Reimagined series. I think that's what it's called. They've got things like Caves of Chaos, I think is what it, or no, is it Keep on the Border? No, it's Into the Borderlands. So I just got that one. I've got Temple of Elemental Evil. So they do a great job with those. It's got a lot of fun information about like when they published these things back in the day, especially the Temple of Elemental Evil one, so you can kind of learn some things just in general about the module. And yeah, but the adventures themselves, I think those are just really good. So yeah, check out Goodman Games and their 5e product line. Number 22, a notable NPC. Well, I kind of already answered this before with my fellowship, but I have a traveling merchant who's a goblin, and he has a wagon of wares. They're all magical. Some of the items are cursed. He doesn't know if they're cursed or not, or if he does, he just doesn't tell you. If you feel like he's going to screw you over, I wouldn't try to attack him because he is very powerful. Obviously, he has a lot of magical items at his disposal, but a lot of them he's already attuned to. And by a lot of them, I mean, if the game system requires attunement, he is attuned to his max allotment, which I guess in 5e would be 3. But all of the things he is attuned to are very powerful. So he is able to defend himself. So yeah, there's that. And yeah, I always have a good time with that. And when I've used him in my games, it's funny because I usually let players try to find magic items if they're trying to in a town. I'm not too stingy on it, but at the same time, I usually make them roll for it if it's even possible. And depending on what they're looking for, I obviously determine a difficulty. So there are some things that might be near impossible or impossible. Number 23, Peerless Player. So there are a lot of players I love playing with over the years. lately I play a lot with my friend Peter, also known as BN Drake. But just in general, playing with friends is always fun. Harold, who's formerly known as Blackthorn's Apothecary. I think he's changing his name to the Dread DM, which I'm looking forward to seeing him at GenCon. Randall Hampton, like so many people. SR2 Joker for a long time was a great one to play with. Just a lot of great players. But there's a lot of players. I mean, I really miss playing with my friend Bill from Roll Stats. Love playing with all those guys. Just so many people I've played with over the years, and a lot of them are great fun to play with. Number 24, acclaimed advice. So I'm a big fan of the Session Zero. I think that's very important. You can get ahead of a lot of problems. I think everybody should have a Session Zero. However, my favorite advice that I give to people that not everyone abides by is don't fudge dice rolls. Now, I know not everybody agrees with me on this, but I used to. And since I have stopped fudging dice rolls, I've had far more fun in my games than ever before. And I would argue most of my groups also have a lot more fun when we don't fudge dice rolls. There's nothing that takes me or my wife out of games more than when people do fudge dice rolls or pull punches. When we feel like a DM is purposely holding things back, we notice, or we think we notice, and we start to then look for them holding things back on accident. So again, I would say don't fudge your dice rolls. You might be worried about killing a character or making a player upset that their character is going to get dropped or taken out of combat or whatever. And I will say this, try to think of ways for that not to be the end all be all. And what I mean by that is maybe their character doesn't die. Maybe they just drop to zero and suffer a grievous wound or a scar. Maybe they do drop and you give them the opportunity outside a game. Maybe you talk to them and say, hey, do you want to still play that character? If they say yes, maybe a deity brings them back. Maybe a demon brings them back. Maybe they make a pact with a warlock. I mean, there's so many things you can do to bring them back. Or to make it an interesting part of the game itself. It might have been a meaningless combat that they dropped in, and you're like, oh, I should have fudged the dice because that wasn't even an important combat. But that can make that combat mean so much more to the campaign if you do it right. Again, if they don't die, maybe now they have this irrational fear of spiders for the rest of the campaign. And so now you can do some fun stuff with that or whatever. Maybe they fall off a cliff because they failed an athletics check and you didn't realize, oh crap, they're going to take enough fall damage to die, but they didn't die. And so now maybe they have an irrational fear of heights. And now you can do things in that campaign later that if they're role-playing these things up can make it so memorable and awesome. So please, try not to fudge dice rolls and find ways to make it more interesting. Work with your players. Don't be afraid to have a conversation with them out of the game about these things either. So that's where I stand on that. And I personally think that's great advice. I wish I got that earlier because I used to fudge dice rolls and I do not think I was a very good DM back then. I still don't know that I'm a great DM, but I think I'm a fair DM, and I think that a lot of people come back and play games with me, even though they can find other groups. So, yeah. Desirable dice. There are some really cool dice out there. I will say this. I don't like heavy dice. I'm worried. I like metal dice, but I don't ever like to roll them because I'm afraid I'm going to scratch tables, break glass tables, whatever. But there's some really cool ones. I gotta figure out what are like the main dice I want to own, because I'm never satisfied with the dice I have. I don't know if it's just because I don't have one set of dice that just stands out above the rest, but when I'm at GenCon next week, I will be looking. I'll be looking for some dice, I think. That might be a thing I do. Superb screen. So I used to be a big advocate for having like crazy DM screens that have all sorts of information, and I barely read DM screens now. I do like using a DM screen, but now I feel like it just depends on what your art is on it. I think the art can be kind of cool and set a tone. I personally like the different 5e screens. For me, it's got to be landscape. I will not touch a portrait screen. But offhand, I don't think there's any screen I necessarily really am like, this is the end all be all for screens. Again, maybe that's something I should think about more. I don't know. So day 27 is Marvelous Miniature. So I have a really awesome dragon, undead dragon up here, that is from Reaper Miniatures. It is, I believe, Calidrax. My wife painted it on stream a few years back. I feel like it took about 12 hours, 14 hours. I don't know. I think it's really cool. It's one of my favorite miniatures that's up on my shelf up here. And it's marvelous, all right. In fact, when people have come over to my house and they've seen it, they're like, oh, that's cool. And yeah, but it's just sitting up here, and I will show you a picture right here. All right, so a great gamer gadget. I want to get one of those like fidget things that like it has like the different dice on it. You can just spin it, kind of like a fidget spinner, and it's got dice, like D20 and whatever in it. I think one of those would be kind of cool. I don't know that I'd actually use it for games, but I think it'd be fun to screw around with. So that would be a cool little gadget. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Are there others that I just can't... Like, oh, another one that's cool. The one that's like a gun, like a revolver, that the bullets are the dice. That's kind of cool, too. I think they're like $60. I would love one of those. So, yeah, that's a cool little gadget as well. Number 29, an awesome app. So, I don't use a lot of apps in general. But, I mean, D&D Beyond has always been kind of nice, at least for the player side of it. Using the character sheet and having the dice rolls within it. I didn't like the phone app version for the longest time because you could just kind of download books and look at books. Didn't really use that. But if you use any like role-playing game apps, let me know. Maybe there's a cool dice app or something. Let me know in the comments. Number 30, a person you'd like to game with. So this barrier has been kind of broken down over the years. I remember we used to talk about playing games with guys like Chris Perkins and Matt Mercer. And because of conventions and all these things over the years, and some people in just the content creator space, getting opportunities through charities and stuff to game with these people, this is much more attainable now. Now, I've never played with any of these like celebrities or athletes or anything like that, but I mean, you could run down a list of people that I would love to game with. I still think Chris Perkins would be one of the best DMs I could ever have. I just love his style of DMing. Obviously Matt Mercer would be great. Celebrities like The Rock or Kevin Hart would be fun. Joe Manganiello and all those guys. Playing with wrestlers like Athena, she would be great. Leva Bates, she would have been cool. She's not in AEW anymore and stuff, but Brandon Cutler would have been great. Peter Avalon, like those people would be cool. And I'm a wrestling fan, so that would have been cool. But Matthew Lillard, I'm a big fan of SLC Punk, so that would be cool. Just so many people out there. I've had the privilege of playing with other content creators that I look up to and admire and respect, and that's always fun. But yeah, so I don't know. It would be awesome to play with some of those people. Number 31, a game or gamer I miss. So I do miss some of the people I used to play with, thanks to the one-shot group. There were some great people in there. And I know some of those people still do stuff, like Lloyd Collins still does stuff. I miss playing with him. He was always pretty good to play with. One of his characters killed mine in a PvP in a Gith Yankee game. that is a pretty memorable moment for me. In the moment, it sucked, but looking back on it, even the next day and, many years after, really awesome, actually. I kind of like that story. SR2 Joker, I do miss playing with him, and a lot of the people we used to play with. I miss playing with Bill from Roll Stats. I know he's a busy guy. I don't know what he's up to these days. I haven't seen him doing much online lately. Draven Swiftbow was fun to play with. Love that he played a very specific type of character, a protector a lot of times in our groups. Always liked that. He played in our Pathfinder campaign. He played in our Dragon Age campaign. And I like playing with Draven Swiftbow a lot too. But yeah, there's a lot of people I miss playing with. A lot of great players. And then the alternative question was an amazing anecdote. Let me know if you have one of those. Put it in the comments below.